taking out Mary Sue was a huge feather in Miscavige's cap as far as he was concerned, because she had brought all this, horrible awfulness on the church.
Right.
And you can see how taking out the founder's wife at this point in time was considered a good thing. Everybody else kind of thought, well, maybe she didn't deserve to get, browbeaten, but look at what she did. It was all on her. They were happy to think that L. Ron Hubbard might not have had anything to do with the whole Snow White fiasco. And Scientologists are now going to jail. I mean, this is really serious. So him taking her out was, yay, go, good that Miscavige took it upon himself to go do that, right?
Right.
He then gets into the purging, even because it starts with Mary Sue, but then there's more. By August, he had written up what was called an internal justice action. Let's call it that, right? The Scientology has its own internal justice system. I think all of us who come out of these cults know that they have their own little law and order set up, and they play by their own rules.
And Mormonism is called the Strengthening the Members Committee. That's what it's called.
Yes. In Scientology, you can have what's called a committee of evidence, which is an ad hoc committee put together for a specific purpose to look into a specific instance of injustice or criminal activity or something like that. And it's 3 to 5 Scientologists who will listen to, call witnesses, look at all the evidence, and then make a determination of what discipline, if any, is required. That's basically, in a nutshell, what a COMEV or a committee of evidence is. He held a committee of evidence in August '81 on a whole bunch of people, just a who's who of high-level people in Scientology. And they were all found guilty, removed from post, stripped of rank. But the findings of that committee were never published. See, a lot of this stuff was done sort of up there. The public Scientologists were not aware of this stuff going on. They did not know Mary Sue had gotten busted. They did not know about Miscavige doing all this stuff. He was not yet in the public eye. So there's not full disclosure going on. What I'm telling you about right now is stuff that was going on at the international base or in Hubbard's inner circle, but this was not known to all the Scientologists at large. They were being told, everything's fine. Scientology's never been in a better place. We're defeating the horrible, awful government that's trying to suppress us. We're defeating the legal suppressives who are trying to destroy the church through legal chicanery and lies and nonsense. This is what the church members are being told. But up top, Miscavige is purging people. Like, he's just not wasting any time getting rid of people that he thinks are going to be a problem to him. And in fact, in 26 August of 1981, there's an issue called Management Changes that gets sent out, which gives data on how the Guardian's office had gone criminal and how LRH wasn't responsible, and they've cleaned it all up, et cetera, et cetera. So then they start forming up. They do this other special project, which is called Project X, or the Special Project. And these two projects are now running concurrently with Miscavige over both of them, or involved with both of them. And they start reforming the corporate structure of Scientology itself. It had been in one corporate structure system, and they started changing all of that. And they brought in tax attorneys and lawyers and professionals, as well as Scientology attorneys and accountants, and they formed up a new corporate structure for Scientology. And I really don't need to get into all the details of it. It's not important for what we're talking about now, except that you need to know that the reasons for the corporate structure were to create a labyrinth of corporate entities that would make up the Church of Scientology as a whole, and to do it in such a way that no one could ever take out Scientology. You could take out one part of it, but then the Hydra head, right? There'd be another thing, and then there'd be another thing, and there'd be another thing. So no matter how the church was attacked legally, it could not be dissolved through 1 or 2 court cases or something like that. The other thing that this labyrinthian structure did was it protected Hubbard as an individual from any liability or problems with any of this. It also happened to later protect Miscavige, because whoever is leading Scientology, that's who it protects. And it was a way to funnel money around, because there were nonprofit and for-profit, and they were figuring that stuff out, and it was all very, very involved. People have tried for years to take all this stuff apart and figure out how to take down Scientology by taking all this stuff apart. But the whole reason all of this was put together in the first place was to make it so that you can't do that. And they actually did a pretty good job. So structurally, corporate-wise, Scientology solidified itself into a structure that made it pretty difficult to get into or to attack. And courts, people don't necessarily recognize this, but courts are not like active investigators. When you take a case to court, you try to pierce the corporate veil of Scientology, and it is a gargantuan task. It is very, very difficult to do. So this did protect the church for many, many decades, and still does to a great degree.
And
this all goes down.
The legal name of the Mormon Church is the Corporation of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Really?
And there are all these probably labyrinthy legal entities like Ensign Peak, which is an investment arm. And, I wouldn't even begin to understand the legal structure of the Mormon Church other than to say, my guess is that our church has gone through a similar reconstruction legally in a way that would protect it against any governmental threats. And I would call on any listeners who are real lawyers who understand corporate entities to do a quick comparison of the legal entities of Scientology versus Mormonism to see how much there are parallels. But my guess is that they're using the same lawyers potentially.
Yeah, maybe so. So by October 1981, so all of this is happening. Everything I'm talking about so far has been pretty much 1981. By October, they have formed an organization called Author Services, Inc. And this organization becomes L. Ron Hubbard's personal literary business affairs organization. That's what it exists for. So, for example, L. Ron Hubbard is an author. He wrote all these books. When those books are sold, L. Ron Hubbard is collecting royalties on those books. That is one of the main income sources for Hubbard, right? In addition to percentages that are paid by the churches to management, some of which would be flowing to Hubbard. So we're talking about a lot of money. And ASI was formed up to manage all of Hubbard's personal and literary and business affairs. And guess who becomes chairman of the board of ASI? David Miscavige.
And this is reminding me of the Jehovah's Witness sort of a transition, because as they started losing their founders, there was some power grab at some point where whoever kind of owned the publications ended up owning the church.
Right. Because there's money from that. And of course, if you literally control the scriptures of the church, I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
The intellectual property, right? The sacred texts, the intellectual property, right?
You got it. Exactly. Yeah. So ASI, and there's another organization formed up, which we will hear much more about later, which is called the Religious Technology Center, RTC. So ASI, RTC, and RTC is formed up to hold the trademarks and copyrights and protect them of Dianetics and Scientology, because Hubbard trademarked and service marked all of his stuff. Scientology is not this open religion that you can just use all the terminology and stuff. They copyrighted it all. And RTC holds those trademarks and licenses their use to churches of Scientology. And this was supposed to set up a system where no one would be able to take Scientology out of the church and go deliver it independently of the Church of Scientology. And for many, many years, Scientology exerted its legal wing to take out any challengers, anybody who was using their trademarks or service marks. They really don't go after them so hard now, but there are many, many other reasons for that. At this time in the 80s, they were all about protecting their trademarks and service marks. And RTC's job basically was to police that.